PoliticsTV.com. But let's get right into what the dailies are saying this morning. And we're starting off with the Guardian newspaper. You, of course, know what will be the big story on the front pages, but let's just show you, right? The front page of the Guardian is first on our lineup, and you see Rivers pipeline explosion may cost $35.3 million loss daily as state of emergency begins. So when you begin to crunch the figures, that's a lot for the nation. But this came before the declaration of state of emergency. So the Guardian is looking at the economic aspect of this. But we're not going to be doing this alone. We're joined on this segment by Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Sam Kargbo, joining us from the nation's capital, Abuja. Senior Advocate, good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning, and thank you for having me this morning.
Well, you can see the front page of the Guardian. It's actually black. It's in black. I don't know if it's meant to represent crude oil or to just represent the mood. But when you see the events that played up until the declaration of a state of emergency by the president, particularly this incident, which the president said was, well, security information pointed to saboteurs, would you say it was in order?
Well, criminality has been with us, and of course, you do not categorize economic criminality as one that is over and above other aspects of criminality that are rampant across the nation. If you are taking any decision on the basis of any incident, you have to actually have in mind that the people are very, very intelligent and they are attentive to what has been happening. Like I have said, for us here in the North, criminality in the form of banditry, terrorism, and all of that is not new. It's been part of us. We live with it and we are adjusted to it. And down there in the South, of course, that has been the situation for a very long time now. But yeah, there have been some innovations from the side of the presidency, especially during the time of President Musa Yar'Adua, who intervened, and his intervention had actually calmed down and abated or put to rest these forms of criminality, that is the vandalization of pipelines. So what am I saying here? I am saying specifically that that cannot be a reason and a justification for the declaration of a state of emergency. Definitely not.
Well, the events, of course, are seriously under scrutiny, and, you know, besides yours, there's been a flurry of reactions over the last 12 hours or so. But that's exactly, you know, what Blueprint is also talking about this morning, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Listen to this. Rivers joins Plateau Ekiti in Nigeria's 26 years of democracy. And you see the riders there. Fubara deputy lawmakers suspended for 6 months in first instance. Tinubu names ex-CNS Ekwe Ibas administrator. NAS duly constituted, says a rep spokesman. You know, we started off by talking about how...
Consulted, that is.
You said?
NAS duly consulted.
Consulted, says rep spokesman. And we started off by talking about how, you know, the other dramatis personae, borrowing the words of Jeffrey, were not mentioned in all of this. And the PDP has reacted to it. So for those affected who disaffected this morning, expressing some form of disaffection, what are the options open to them?
Yeah, definitely the courts are there. You mentioned the case of Darie 2004 and that of Fayose 2006. They were suspended by Obasanjo, President Obasanjo, and both suspensions were declared to be unlawful. And you see, there is a very strong, narrow debate here, which is whether or not Nigeria or any part of it can be ruled in any way other than as stated in the Constitution, because Section 1, subsection 2 is very clear. He said no part of Nigeria, and Nigeria in particular, can or should be ruled in any manner other than the way it's specifically lined out and set out in the Constitution. Yes, the president has the power of proclamation to claim a state of emergency in the state if the incident stated under Section 305 occur, or any of them occurs, but the Constitution is very silent on whether or not that state of emergency include the power to suspend or remove. I would say definitely not removal, but whether or not it includes suspension, to me, that's a very gray area. If indeed the governor is the reason for the breakdown of law and order, and the president has the right to sustain law and order and public safety in the state, perhaps that can justify that. But beyond that, that's a very thorny issue that would be with us for a long while, because presidents have their way of more or less setting the mind of the average person, because what has been done before, there is always the reason for it to be repeated. Because Obasanjo has done that, I think those who are dusting the books went back to it to say, okay, he did this in 2004 and 2006, and the heavens did not fall. But to me, when you are taking political decisions of that nature, you have to be very careful, because, you see, messages trickle down and they set the minds of the people, resetting us back to a situation where a state actor or an institution of the state can intervene in that manner. To me, it's not a very welcome happenstance.
All right. Senior Advocate, maybe we'll get to this Nigeria as well. Of course, I'm sure every paper today is carrying that headline with different inscription. Why Fubara was sacked as Rivers governor. President invokes Section 305 of the Constitution, cites breakdown of law and order, militants blowing up national assets, Deputy Governor, Assembly members affected, Vice Admiral Ibokete Bas to act as sole administrator for 6 months. I also want to find out from you, I think Section 4, no, I think Section 6 or so, the section that talks about the input of the National Assembly. I know it was consulted. There was a meeting between the service chiefs and leadership of the National Assembly. But we still need the National Assembly to give force and effect to this declaration. Are we right, Senior Advocate?
Yeah, Section 305 is very clear. The procedure for the declaration of a state of emergency starts with a gazette. You make the proclamation in a government published gazette, and thereafter within you transmit that gazette with a letter requesting them to approve. That is both the Senate and the House of Representatives, and those institutions should, within 2 days, if they are in session, or 10 days, sit and deliberate on it and decide whether or not to approve. And that approval, to me, is necessary before you take those concrete steps. There is what we call procedural ultravirus. If the Constitution has, by its own wisdom, tells you the steps you need to take before you activate a power, you have to follow that procedure strictly. You don't bypass it. But what we have here, I think the president believes that the National Assembly can ratify the appointment of a sole administrator after suspending. No, I think, to my mind, the sequence would have been send the gazette to the National Assembly, seek their approval before you take the next step. Because let me ask this question: what if the National Assembly declines and refuses to give you the necessary approval, what happens to the days you've already removed the governor and instituted or appointed or foisted on the people as sole administrator? What happens to those days? So to me, sometimes, yes, reacting to such, to me, this is a political situation. Yes, the governor has by himself misconducted himself. The State House of Assembly have also said so. They've misconducted themselves. Those two key institutions of the state have actually disappointed the people of Rivers State, and I would ask them to look at themselves in the mirror and see whether or not they are not a disappointment to the people of Rivers State. But I would have expected that the presidency would be on a higher moral ground and play a much more circumspective role, considering what everybody is saying here, the likely consequences of declaring a state of emergency, especially in a state where the state is drawn across factional lines, each party taking a very strong position, those in support of the governor and those in support of the minister of the FCT. And if you take a decision that seems, to my mind, that favors one of the parties, you may not have come in as an unbiased intermediary.
Well, senior advocate, very interesting points raised there, but these are very, very interesting moments, really, for Nigeria and for Rivers State. We have to thank you so much for your intervention. We've been speaking with Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Sam Kargbo, joining us from the nation's capital, Abuja. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
So what does Rivers State look like this morning after that declaration of a state of emergency by President Bola Tinubu yesterday at about 7 p.m.? Well, it's a few minutes after 7 a.m. this morning, and let's show you what the streets of Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital, looks like this morning. We have live visuals coming in just to show you the mood of the city. Well, it's still calm, like a normal Wednesday morning. This, by the way, is Port Harcourt, the state capital. It's still calm. You could see the vehicles just moving as though everything is fine, and we hope that it remains the same. But Jeffrey Bukola, looking at this image, I don't know, is it the calm before the storm or the calm that has been restored or that would be restored, or sorry, that will be sustained? That's the word.
Well, this looks to me more like uneasy calm in Rivers State, and you know, a situation where the people are just internalizing the turn of events in the last 12 hours, of course with recourse as well to the turn of events in the last 2 years in Rivers State following the intractable political crisis. And of course they're reflecting on their choices in the coming days and what it would look like, what Rivers State would look like, you know, following this as declaration of state of emergency and the governance of an administrator who has now been appointed to oversee the state. What would the state look like under Vice Admiral Ibok Ite-Bass?
Yeah.
I believe those are the musings, possibly, of Rivers residents this morning.
So I don't know where this is exactly in Port Harcourt, but this is the capital city. When the heat is, when things happen, city centers are actually perhaps the very last places you get that pulse. I'm sure the people are trying to process what is really going on, because I don't think a lot of people saw that emergency declaration coming. But some of us who have our ears down already know that some things are going to happen this week, but to what extent is a different kettle of fish. So I'm sure a couple of other places are as calm as this, but there are other places. But the right word you use, Bukola, is that uneasy calm. People are not sure what to make it. But for a lot of people, their attention will also be at the National Assembly, perhaps, for the ratification or whatever word is used to give force to what the president has said. I was looking at what 2/3 majority means in the House of Reps. That should be like 240. House of National Senate should be like 72 or so. Whether they would follow through with the president's decision or defy it is up to them. But I guess this idea was to just, before this gets beyond the extraordinary, let's control this, because it's a volatile environment. So we hope at the end of the day that sanity will return, and the political gladiators themselves will have a reason and a time to reflect for the interest of the people. The interest of the people is the most primary interest at the end of the day. As long as that is sacrificed, then nobody wins. Guys?
Indeed, Jeffrey. We'll take a quick break now, and when we return, we'll not just bring you live images from the streets of Rivers, we'll be delving deeper into the state of emergency situation. Stay with us.